Hi everybody, today we are learning about quadrilaterals, and it's really important for you to watch this video before you start on your paper Google Classroom assignment, because it's a little bit more than just naming each quadrilateral. We're going to actually go into depth and talk about the definition of each type of quadrilateral. So let me get my document camera up here. Okay, so here is the word quadrilateral. We've talked about prefixes before, and we know that prefixes help us figure out how many sides are in a polygon a lot of times. So the prefix here is quad, and quad usually means 4. So any quadrilateral is just a shape with 4 sides. So all of these are quadrilaterals, every shape on here. Now, some are special quadrilaterals, and that means that they have special names, and some are just quadrilaterals that don't have a specific name for them. So I'm going to sort these real quick. This is a special quadrilateral. This one is special. Okay. Now this is a quadrilateral that does not have a specific name. So this one is not special. Does not have a name, it's just a quadrilateral. That is special, it has a name. This one is special, this one is special. This one is special, you can see that. And these two are just 4-sided shapes that do not have a special name for them, okay? So now we're going to talk about a few words that you should be familiar with already, because we have talked about these before. One word is parallel lines, okay? Parallel lines are 2 lines that will never cross or touch each other. So let me show you an example of parallel lines real quick. Okay, so if I have a line here and I have a line going the same direction, if these lines keep going and going and going and going, both of these forever and ever and ever, they will never touch. That means they're parallel. Now, if I have this line and this line, these are not parallel to each other, because if this were to keep going and this were to keep going, eventually they would cross. So parallel lines are 2 lines that they will never cross. And that's important to know for quadrilaterals, because we're going to hear that word a lot, parallel lines. So you really need to know what parallel means. Okay. Something else you need to know is what an angle is. We've talked about angles before. An angle is the space between 2 lines that cross each other or share an endpoint. So we've talked about different types of angles, but in a shape, anytime there's 2 lines, like here's a triangle. Triangle has 3 angles, 1, 2, 3. We're going to talk about squares in a minute. A square has 4 angles, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we're talking about angles, we're talking about 2 lines coming together to make an angle. Okay. All right. Now we're going to talk about a specific type of angle. And we've talked about this before too. Just want to make sure you guys know what all these words mean when I start saying them. But a right angle is an angle of 90 degrees, such as the corner of a square. So we've talked about how if you have a right angle, you can actually make a box in the corner and it looks like a square. That's how you know it's a right angle. Also, when you guys get to 4th grade and you start measuring angles, a right angle always measures at 90 degrees. So if I were to have 4 right angles, each of these is a 90-degree angle. Sometimes people call these 90-degree angles instead of right angles. So, but you need to know what a right angle is for today's lesson. Okay, so we've gone over some things that you should already know. Now, here are some things we've kind of talked about, but not in depth. But we have talked about different types of quadrilaterals, and we're going to start with a parallelogram. Okay, here's a picture of a parallelogram, and that is a parallelogram. We're going to talk about the definition of a parallelogram in just a minute. Okay, we know, you probably know what that one is. That is a square. Okay. This is one that we had on our desks, and so you guys might remember this one, but this one is a trapezoid. You should know that that is a rectangle. And this last one, I'm going to kind of scoot these down. Okay. This one is a rhombus. We've talked about that too. Okay. So now we're going to get into the definitions of all those. So I'm going to bring this to a different screen so you can see what I'm seeing. Okay. This was something that was in our math books, and I'm going to attach this to Google Classroom. That way you can use this to help you on your assignment, because I think this will really help. But it talks about all those things we just talked about. It talks about an angle, a right angle. It shows you a picture of an angle and a right angle, and it tells you what parallel lines are, and it shows you an example. Okay. We have talked about polygons before. We've done lessons on those. So it is now in this section telling you what a polygon is. Remember, polygons have to be closed in and they can't have curved lines. That's why these are polygons and these are not polygons. The quadrilateral has to be a polygon. Now, these are the 5 different types of special quadrilaterals we're learning about today. So it's telling you here a trapezoid has 1 pair of parallel sides. So this line is parallel. I wonder if I can mark on this. Okay. This line right here is parallel to this line right here. Because if these lines were to keep going and going and going and going, they would never touch. But these lines on the side are not parallel, because if this one were to keep going and this one were to keep going, they eventually would cross. So this trapezoid has only 1 pair of parallel sides. Remember, a pair is actually 2, right? Like a pair of socks, that's 2 socks. A pair of shoes, that's 2 shoes. So it has a line here and a line here that are parallel. That's a pair. But this pair of lines are not parallel. Okay, now let's look at this parallelogram. The definition of a parallelogram says 2 pairs of parallel sides. Okay, so we can see this line is parallel to this line. There's 1 pair. And this line is parallel to this line. So there's 2 pairs of parallel sides. Figure out how to do that. Okay. It also says opposite sides are the same length. So these opposite sides that were parallel, they're also the same length. And the opposite angles are the same size. So here's an angle here. If I go opposite, I'm going this way. They're saying that this angle is equal to this angle. And these opposite angles are equal to each other too. They're the same. Okay. A rectangle has to have 4 right angles, and usually we can tell, oh, that wasn't good. Where's my undo? There it is. Okay. If I can do this on the computer, usually you can tell. Just pretend that looks like a square. Okay. You can tell if there's a right angle because you can draw a little square in the corner, and it makes a square. That one's better. Now, if I were to go over here to this parallelogram, if I were to try to do that, it would not make a square because this line is slanted here. So a parallelogram is not a rectangle, but a rectangle is a parallelogram. This is where it starts to get a little confusing because quadrilaterals can be named other quadrilaterals if they follow the definition of that. Okay, so this rectangle has 4 right angles, but look, it also has 2 pairs of parallel sides because this side and this side are parallel, and the top and the bottom are parallel. So this is a rectangle and a parallelogram. Okay, let's move on to rhombus. Get rid of my ugly right angles over here. Okay. This is our rhombus, and it says all sides are the same length. So a rhombus is a special parallelogram, just like a rectangle was. The reason why a rhombus is a parallelogram is because the opposite sides are parallel, and it has 2 pairs of parallel lines. Now, the reason it's a rhombus has to have all equal sides, okay? Can a rhombus be a rectangle? No, because a rectangle has to have 4 right angles. Does a rhombus have 4 right angles? Nope, it doesn't, okay? A square has to have 4 right angles. Okay, that reminds me of something else we just learned about. A rectangle has to have 4 right angles, so keep that in mind. And all sides the same length. Okay, I heard that a minute ago too. Rhombus has all sides the same length. So a square is pretty special because it is a parallelogram, it is a rectangle, it is a rhombus, and obviously it's also a square. Okay, so this is kind of the lesson today, is we're looking at shapes and realizing that they can actually be classified as different names because they follow that definition. I'm going to be attaching this paper here to your Google Classroom, and I think it would be a good idea to have this up or handy or print it out or write down the definitions when you're doing your assignment today. Because if you don't have those definitions in front of you, it can get kind of confusing when you get to figuring out what can be what. Okay, I'm going to go back to my document camera. So, share screen. Okay. Now, we're going to go through each shape and decide what names it could be called, okay? And here is my little handy dandy paper that I told you will help you a lot today. This section especially will help you today. Let me see if I can zoom in so you guys can see that a little bit better. Okay, it's really this bottom section that we need. Okay. All right, so here's our definitions. I'm going to lay a shape down and we're going to decide what it would be called. Okay. So, hold on, I dropped a word. I'm going to go ahead and lay out all the names we have. We have trapezoid, rectangle, rhombus, parallelogram, and square. Okay. I'm going to lay a shape down and we're going to decide which of these names it could be called. Okay. So let's start with this one right here. Okay. So let's just go through here and figure out which one of these it could be called. So let's start with trapezoid. Has only one pair of parallel sides. Does this have just one pair of parallel sides? One here and one here. Okay, this has two pairs of parallel sides. So this is not a trapezoid, so I'm going to remove the trapezoid. Okay, let's decide now if this could be a parallelogram. Okay, does it have two pairs of parallel sides? One, two. Yes, it does. So this is a parallelogram. Let's see if it's a rectangle. Does it have four right angles? Okay, there's a right angle here. One here, so that's two. Three right angles, four right angles. I can always make sure it has a right angle if I draw those little squares. It's a lot easier to draw squares on this than on the computer screen. It was better. Yay me. Okay. So yes, it's definitely a rectangle because look, four right angles. The definition of a rectangle has to have four right angles. So we are going to put the word rectangle here. Okay. Let's see if this could be a rhombus. Are all sides the same length? Are all sides the same length? They are. So this is a rhombus, 2. And finally, let's see if it's a square. Does it have four right angles and all sides the same length? Does it have both? Yes, it does. So this is also a square. So this one had four names that we could have called it. Okay, let's try another one. I know this is a little bit of a longer video, but I really want you guys to understand all the different names for some of these shapes. Okay, let's go with a tricky one. How about this one? Okay, so let's go through our definitions. We know it's a quadrilateral because it has four sides. Does it have one pair only of parallel sides? Okay. This line is parallel to this line. The top and bottom are parallel. But are these lines parallel? If I were to keep going with this and going with this, you see how they would eventually touch. Watch this. This keeps going. That keeps going. Okay? So these lines are not parallel. But the top and bottom were parallel. That back up here. Okay. So, does it have one pair of parallel sides? We decided yes. So this is a trapezoid. Now we still need to make sure it can't be anything else. So, could it be a parallelogram? Two pairs of parallel sides? Nope, it only has one pair. So we've ruled that one out, can't be that. Does it have four right angles? Could it be a rectangle? No. Could it be a rhombus? Are all sides the same length? Well, this side and this side look the same, but are they the same as top and bottom? No. So it's not a rhombus. And we already know it's not a square because we already said no to rectangle and no to rhombus. It does not have four right angles and all sides are not the same length. So the only thing that this can be called is a trapezoid. Okay. Let's try another one. Let's try this one. Okay. So let's go through our words. Could it be a trapezoid? Only one pair of parallel sides? No. Why not? Because this has two pairs of parallel sides. Okay? These two are parallel. The top is parallel to the bottom, and the left side is parallel to the right side. Okay? So no to trapezoid. We're going to move on. Could it be a parallelogram? Or does it have two pairs of parallel sides? Yes, we just said it has two pairs of parallel sides and not one. So it is a parallelogram. Could it be a rectangle? Does it have four right angles? Let me check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, sometimes people call right angles 90-degree angles. Yes, so we would say yes, it's a rectangle. Could it be a rhombus? Are all sides the same length? I would say no, because I have two long sides and two short sides. So no, it cannot be a rhombus. Could it be a square? 4 right angles. It does have that, but are all sides the same length? No, so it can't be a square. So this one can only be a parallelogram or a rectangle. Okay, let's do another one. Wish you guys were here to help me do this. I sure miss you guys. This would be a lot more fun if we were doing this together. Okay, we're gonna try this shape here. Okay. Go through our definitions. Remember, I want you to be doing this on your assignment today. I want you to be checking each of these, and because sometimes on your assignment you're going to be picking more than one, but sometimes it might just be one. Okay, so you really have to make sure you've looked through every option today. Trapezoid, does it have one pair of parallel sides? Only one pair? Okay, the top and bottom are parallel, and left and right are parallel. So that means it has two pairs, not one pair, so it's not a trapezoid, but that does mean it's a parallelogram. Okay, it's a parallelogram. We've already decided that. Could it be a rectangle? Does it have 4 right angles? Okay, if I were to do my right angles here, is that making a square? No, those are not squares. So it does not have any right angles. So we're going to say no to rectangle. Could it be a rhombus? Are all sides the same length? Yes, every side is the same length, so it is a rhombus. Okay, now a square has to have 4 right angles and all sides the same length. Why can it not be a square? Because it doesn't have 4 right angles, so it can't be a square. So this one's only a parallelogram and a rhombus. Okay, I'm gonna stop there, and I hope you guys watch this, and I hope this helps you on your assignment. I know this is kind of tricky, but I know you guys can do it. I miss you guys, and if you need any help at all, have your parents email me, or I can do a Zoom meeting and we can have a little lesson, just you and me together. So please feel free to contact me if you're having trouble. Love you guys. Bye. I've got to figure out how I can stop recording. There we go.